A pandemic, as defined by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, means a disease outbreak that has spread across multiple countries and continents and usually impacts many people. In the year 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. This changed all our lives and handed it back to us upside down. Currently, we are still dealing with the global outbreak and nothing has been the same since. Governments all across the world took strict decisions, restricted free movement, placed populations under lockdown in order to limit the spread of the deadly virus and contain this pandemic. We all remember the moment when our cities or countries for that matter went into lockdown. People began attending their classes from their homes and working from their homes too. But have you ever thought about what would happen if the world was struck with 5 pandemics all at once? What would they be? How would they affect mankind? How would we fight them and how fast can we normalize lives that we can carry on living? Well, we did some thinking. Human beings don't really have the best crisis management measures set in place in case of something like this breaks out. Here are some details about pandemics and their types to know more deeply about them. Any kind of disease that affects and causes fatality on a global scale can be categorized as a pandemic. The World Health Organization closely watches the following diseases around the world. They are chikungunya, a viral disease transmitted to humans by infected mosquitoes; cholera, a diarrheal disease, followed by Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, which has a fatality rate of 40%. Next in line is Ebola, which is a hemorrhagic fever transmitted to humans from infected wild animals and spread more via human to transmission. Along with Hendra virus infection and influenza. There comes Lassa fever, Marburg virus disease, meningitis, MERS-CoV, which is a respiratory illness, and monkeypox. Nipah virus infection, bubonic, septicemic and pneumonic plague, and Rift Valley fever, SARS, which stands for severe acute respiratory syndrome, smallpox, tularemia, yellow fever, Zika virus disease, and finally novel coronavirus. The first point about a pandemic that we should note is that an epidemic is classified as a pandemic when it has affected masses and the distress can be identified globally. Now all pandemics start locally from a region and then begin spreading globally. Experts have pointed out that the likelihood of a pandemic being more widespread is due to global travel and urbanization. Since people have access to traveling very easily and live in very close spaces, spreading of any kinds of diseases becomes easier. For instance, the COVID-19 virus all began with the early cases that can be traced to Huanan Seafood Market in Wuhan. Infamously known as a wet market where live meat, fish and wild animals of various kinds are sold. This market became a perfect breeding ground for the virus. The way this virus became deadlier is that in the wet market, a variety of animals come into close contact with each other. This made it easier for viruses to mingle and collate with other viruses, therefore, mutating and changing their genetic code. This gave birth to a new strain of the virus, which is now the reason for the pandemic. Human beings did not have or had very little immunity to it, and therefore, this disease became bigger than anyone ever envisaged it to get. Now there are various stages of a pandemic. The World Health Organization has clearly laid out fixed phases of an outbreak and how it progresses towards the declaration of a pandemic. Phase 1. No animal flu virus has been reported to cause infection in humans. Phase 2. An animal flu virus in domesticated or wild animals has caused infection in humans and is considered a potential pandemic threat. Phase 3. An animal or human-animal flu virus has caused clusters of disease in people but has not resulted in human-to-human transmission rates that suggest a community outbreak. Phase 4. Human-to-human transmission rates are enough to indicate that community outbreaks have been confirmed. Phase 5. The virus has caused ongoing community outbreaks in 2 or more countries. Phase 6. In addition to Phase 5 criteria, the virus has caused community outbreaks in at least 1 additional country. Post-peak period levels of the pandemic have dropped below peak levels. Post-pandemic period levels of flu activity have returned to the normal levels seen for seasonal flu in most countries. Now this whole global pandemic and surviving it is what determines the future of the world. Therefore, in order to survive this condition, we need to have both physiological and psychological measures in place. We need to keep following our morning routines. No matter what happens, the way we follow our set routine in place determines how our day will go by. Therefore, as lucrative as it might sound to stay in your comfiest clothes and lounge around, we recommend hopping off the bed and getting ready for work with some exercise and scrumptious breakfast. Avoid excessive screen time and involve yourself in more physically engaging activities. Set alone some private time for yourself and dedicate some time to your friends and family too. Along with following these, remember to recharge, reset and relax. Being stuck inside 4 walls might sometimes feel heavily suffocating. Therefore, it is necessary for us to get up from our positions, stretch a little and breathe in some fresh air. That is very crucial for having a fresh mind. Without a doubt, the best place to be when a pandemic strikes is in the comfort of your own home. On the set of the pandemic, governments all across the globe will declare a lockdown to curb the spread of the said disease. This will lead to travel restrictions, population movement control and banning of a lot of things. Therefore, getting stuck somewhere might be a harrowing experience for someone. Having said that, when humankind is affected by such a deadly issue, it is the responsibility of each citizen of the world that they take the necessary precautionary measures to curb the disease. Our future is in our hands. And as rightly said, survival of the fittest. Thank you for watching this video. Have you ever wondered what will happen if half the human population is wiped off in an instance? Watch our next video on that.